You think you know power, don't you? You picture grand sultans seated on gilded thrones, their pronouncements echoing through marble halls, armies marching at their command, and the fate of empires decided by their royal whim. But what if the true levers of power, the real architects of destiny, operated not in the blinding light of the throne room, but in the deepest, most shadowed corners of the palace? What if the most crucial decisions, the ones that reshaped entire civilizations and determined the rise and fall of dynasties, were forged not by a single monarch but by a clandestine assembly, a whisper network, a shadow council whose very existence was a closely guarded secret? This is the untold story of the medieval Middle East, a tapestry woven not just with the threads of glorious battles and caliphate decrees, but with the dark, intricate knots of intrigue, espionage, and unseen influence. It's a narrative where the visible ruler was often a mere figurehead, a dazzling sun around which a constellation of hidden power brokers silently orbited, subtly guiding its trajectory. Welcome, intrepid seekers of forgotten truths, to medieval times uncharted, where we dare to venture beyond the official chronicles, to pierce through the opulent veils of history and illuminate the secret chambers where genuine power resided. Today, you are invited to step beyond the bustling bazaars and towering minarets, to slip past the vigilant guards and rustling silks, and descend into the heart of a medieval Middle Eastern palace. You will uncover the shadowy assembly that truly shaped the fate of empires. The Sultan's Shadow Council. This is the story of unseen hands, sharp minds, and an unquenchable thirst for influence that operated in the liminal spaces between absolute authority and whispered conspiracy, leaving an indelible mark on one of history's most vibrant and volatile regions. If you're ready to unravel the intricate web of deception, discover the hidden forces that guided empires, and witness how the Middle East's destiny was truly forged, then hit that like button and help us bring these clandestine histories to light. Subscribe to Medieval Times Uncharted so you never miss a revelation from the secret annals of the past. And follow us across all platforms to join our ongoing quest for the deepest, most enthralling mysteries of medieval history. Cast your mind back to an era of breathtaking opulence and brutal realpolitik, perhaps the grand Abbasid Caliphate at its zenith in Baghdad, or the sophisticated Mamluk Sultanate in Cairo, or even the burgeoning Ottoman Empire in Anatolia. You smell the pungent aroma of spices, the sweet scent of jasmine, the faint metallic tang of ambition that permeates every corner of these magnificent capitals. You are not concerned with the parades or the public pronouncements. Instead, you are drawn to the hushed corridors, the discreet meetings, the glances exchanged between seemingly minor officials that betray a deeper understanding. For centuries, the empires of the Middle East were not merely ruled by a sultan or caliph. They were governed by a complex, often cutthroat, ecosystem of viziers, eunuchs, generals, religious scholars, and even royal women, all vying for the ear of the sovereign, or, failing that, for control of the administrative machinery that kept the empire running. But amongst these, you find a more exclusive tier, the truly uncharted power brokers. This wasn't an official body, not something mentioned in royal decrees or public records. Its power stemmed from its very invisibility. You imagine them meeting not in designated council chambers but in hidden courtyards, under the watchful eyes of silent guards, in dimly lit private libraries filled with forbidden texts, or even in the gilded privacy of the harem, where female influence could be profoundly impactful. These were the masters of information, the whisperers of secrets, the puppeteers pulling strings from behind the scenes. Their currency was intelligence, their weapon was persuasion, and their ultimate goal was the long-term shaping of imperial policy to suit their collective vision, or often, their individual interests. Consider the role of the Grand Vizier, a position that, while official, often blurred the lines into this shadowy influence. You see him as the Sultan's right hand, the chief administrator, commander of armies, and head of the bureaucracy. His power was immense, almost regal. But even the Grand Vizier had his own inner circle, his own confidants and spies, his own network of informers and executors who carried out his will, often without the Sultan's direct knowledge. You feel the constant tension, the fear of rivals, the meticulous planning required to maintain such an elevated yet precarious position. Then there were the eunuchs, often purchased as children, castrated, and raised within the palace walls. They became utterly dependent on the royal household, yet paradoxically gained immense power through their unique access and loyalty. You observe the chief black eunuch, often the most powerful figure in the harem, controlling access to the Sultan's private quarters, managing vast wealth, and overseeing the thousands of women and servants. His quiet authority was absolute within those walls, and his influence over the Sultan, often cultivated from childhood, could be immeasurable. The ulama, the learned religious scholars and jurists, also formed a crucial, often moral, counterweight to absolute power. You see them debating theological points, issuing fatwas, and interpreting Sharia law. While seemingly focused on spiritual matters, their collective voice held immense sway over public opinion, and could, if united, challenge even the Sultan's most audacious plans. Their influence wasn't about covert action, but about the profound weight of religious legitimacy, a force no sultan could ignore. And then there was the harem itself. Not merely a place of leisure, but a vibrant, often cutthroat, political arena. You feel the simmering rivalries, the quiet alliances, the fierce protection of children, and the subtle, yet potent influence wielded by the Valid Sultan, Queen Mother, and favored concubines. You realize that a wise sultan knew to heed these voices, for a discontented harem could sow discord, orchestrate coups, and even decide the succession. The rustle of silks in the harem often preceded the clash of swords in the succession struggles. These were the diverse components, the powerful individuals, who, when coalesced around a common agenda or a shared secret, formed the true Shadow Council. They were the unwritten rules, the unseen hands that often dictated the ebb and flow of imperial power, subtly weaving their narratives into the grand tapestry of history. But how did these hidden players coordinate their intricate schemes? What were their methods, and what were the stakes for those who dared to play such a dangerous game? The answers lie deeper within the palace walls, past layers of watchful eyes and silent secrets. You understand now that the Shadow Council wasn't a formal institution with gilded titles and public meetings. It was a fluid, ever-shifting alliance of the palace's most astute and ambitious minds, each bringing their unique access and influence to the clandestine table. Their methods were as varied as they were insidious, designed to manipulate without overt confrontation, to guide without directly commanding. You learn to read the subtle cues, the pregnant silences, the carefully placed whispers that could alter the course of an empire. The primary weapon in their arsenal was information. You imagine networks of spies woven throughout the capital, reporting on every merchant's transaction, every general's ambition, every scholar's descent. These informers, often seemingly innocuous figures, a street vendor, a bathhouse attendant, a slave in a rival's household, fed a constant stream of vital intelligence back to their hidden masters. Think of the Mamluk Sultanate in Cairo, where the power of the Amir, military commanders, often overshadowed the Sultan himself. Here, you would find the Shadow Council forming around the most powerful emirs, using their vast military and financial resources to control the state. Their communication was a marvel of discretion. You envision coded letters hidden within baskets of fruit, messages disguised as mundane market lists, or verbal reports delivered in hushed tones behind intricate latticework screens. Trust was a precious commodity, betrayal a swift death. Then there was the art of subtle persuasion. The Sultan, though absolute, was still a human being, susceptible to counsel, superstition, and ambition. You see the council members subtly framing arguments, presenting options in a way that led the Sultan to their predetermined conclusion, believing it was his own brilliant idea. Perhaps a scholar, a respected member of the... Our journey takes a darker turn as you explore the Fatimid Caliphate in 10th to 12th century Egypt, where the office of the vizier often became more powerful than the caliph himself. You feel the palpable tension in Cairo, a city of grand monuments and hidden plots, where the Ismaili caliphs, often young or weak, found themselves increasingly sidelined by ambitious military viziers. These viziers, frequently drawn from powerful military families or even former slave soldiers, Mamluks, amassed personal armies and controlled vast tracts of land. They dictated policy, appointed and deposed caliphs at will, and even controlled the caliph's access to the outside world. You watch as a caliph, supposedly the spiritual and temporal leader, is reduced to a symbolic figurehead, confined to his palace, his life dependent on the whims of his vizier. The vizier's own inner circle, his trusted generals and scribes, effectively formed the shadow council, making all the crucial decisions. The fate of Egypt, its military campaigns, its economy, its very religious identity, was decided by men who, though holding the official title of vizier, operated with the unchecked power of monarchs, often in direct opposition to the nominal ruler. You witness the ultimate expression of the shadow council's power, the ability to strip the sovereign of all meaningful authority, transforming the throne into a mere stage prop, while the true drama of governance unfolded behind closed doors. This period showcases the complete inversion of the traditional power structure, where the shadow became the substance. The constant tug-of-war between visible and invisible power had profound and lasting consequences for the Middle East. You realize that these unending intrigues, while sometimes leading to periods of stability and prosperity under capable viziers, more often bred instability. The resources of empires were frequently squandered on internal power struggles rather than external defense or public works. Loyalty became a fickle commodity, shifting with the political winds. You feel the paranoia that must have gripped the palace walls, every cup of wine tasted, every new face scrutinized, every whispered conversation a potential threat. Trust was a luxury few could afford. This constant internal friction ultimately weakened many of these grand empires, making them vulnerable to external threats. You see the internal divisions of the Abbasids contribute to their eventual decline, the Fatimid Caliphate's weakness exploited by the rise of Saladin. The Shadow Council, by its very nature, often prioritized the preservation of its own influence over the long-term health of the state. Its members were masters of short-term gains and subtle manipulations, but rarely long-term, unified strategic vision. And yet, this is not a story of pure villainy. You also acknowledge that these powerful figures, the brains behind the throne, often provided the crucial stability, administrative expertise, and military leadership that weak or disinterested sultans lacked. They were the pragmatists, the survivors, the ones who kept the wheels of empire turning, even if their methods were opaque and self-serving. They were an undeniable, often essential, part of the fabric of medieval Middle Eastern governance. Their existence forces you to question the very nature of leadership and authority. Was it better to have a strong, albeit hidden, hand guiding the state, or to suffer under a weak, visible ruler with no true control? The legacy of the Sultan's Shadow Council is complex, etched into the very foundations of how power functioned in these intricate societies. It reminds you that history is rarely as straightforward as the official records suggest, and that the most profound influences often leave the faintest traces. What other uncharted intrigues still lie hidden beneath the gilded pages of history? What other unseen forces shape the world you inhabit today? The quest for truth is an endless journey, and the shadows of the past continue to hold untold stories. Join our expedition into the uncharted past. If you believe history deserves to be truly explored, not just recited, then join our expedition. Hit that like button to fuel our research and help us continue bringing these lost stories to light. Subscribe to the Medieval Times Uncharted channel so you never miss a revelation about the true ingenuity of the past. And follow us across all platforms to become a true co-explorer of the deepest mysteries of medieval history. Until next time, keep questioning the narratives and keep seeking the truth in the shadows of empires.